So once again, welcome everyone for the fourth session. And so I think the previous session we were talked about the inverter systems basically. So basically the inverter is powered by the battery pack. So end of the day, now we are going to come to the next component, which is going to power all this whole system of an electric vehicle, right? So end of the day, this battery pack, is one of the area where we have a very good amount of role for mechanical engineers and material science engineers. They can do a lot of work in this particular domain, in this particular area of electric vehicle. At the same time, even the electrical and electronic engineers have their role to play in a battery system at a system level. Say for example, we will be looking at in this particular session we'll be talking about various components of a battery pack system and the various considerations. When a design engineer works in a battery development project, what are all the ways he need to consider, and what are all the things he need to consider while taking such a project in terms of safety, in terms of the performance, in terms of the standard requirements in the industry. So all these things we need to consider when developing a battery pack for an application, right? So the detailed discussions on the BMS and all these things will be happening tomorrow. But we'll here in this particular session we'll be focusing on a pack level or a battery pack level. What are all the things to consider and what's the trend going on in the industry right now? So first of all, what are the drivers? Basically, when you look at electric vehicle domain, a lightweight design is becoming a very important factor. So lightweight design. When we say lightweight design, right, nearly 50% of the weight of a electric vehicle is being shared by the battery pack alone, right? So 40 to 50% means it's definitely a huge weight. So what it means for a design engineer, right? What it means for a research person, a research scholar, is that there is a huge amount of scope for optimization and improvement in a battery pack of an electric vehicle. Either it is a two-wheeler, which is going to have a very small battery pack close to 2 kilowatt, 4 kilowatt, like that, whereas or it can be a very big battery pack like a passenger car or a bus, where the range will be like the battery pack will be ranging from 50 kilowatt to 125 kilowatt of power capacity, right? So such a distribution is there on the power for the battery packs. And basically to reduce the to improve the battery pack lightweight, the lightweight design, what is the actually the driving force behind it? So when we make a lightweight design of a battery pack, right, so obviously it is going to improve the performance of the vehicle in one side. On the other side, it is going to add benefit to the cost of the product, the end product, and at the same time the sustainability of this whole product, right? So when we are achieving a lightweight design, the performance factors like range, acceleration, energy consumption, charging time, and safety, and the crash fire resistance of the battery pack, and its durability for the lifetime of the vehicle, all these things need to be considered before finalizing a design of a battery pack. And at the same time, the cost side, right? When we look at the cost side, yes, component material cost and the manufacturing cost of each and every component present in the battery pack, and the cost impact of a resized structure. If there is a new model that we are going to bring into the market, so how the new model and the old model are different, and is it necessary to make all the complete redesign, right? And what is the overall cost that the battery pack is going to bring, right? That is also one of the factors we need to understand. At the same time, sustainability. So if we are selecting some materials for the battery pack related design, right? For the battery pack design, if we are selecting a material or a manufacturing process, we need to understand what is the energy usage of such a manufacturing process or of a material. And if we are selecting a material like nickel, cobalt, manganese, ferrous, any such material for a battery pack application, we need to understand whether this material is available or will be available for the next upcoming years, whether this material is sustainable, right, or the manufacturing process of this material is sustainable. We need to consider definitely all these factors. And not only the present scenario, even we need to consider whether this battery pack is recyclable in future, right, or reusable in the future. If so, what is the percentage of recyclability, what is the percentage of recoverability, and what is the percentage of reusability? All these factors are to be considered when a battery pack design project is taken care. So it all depends. It all the research scope. When you ask the research scope, for a particular the area of the battery pack, all these areas are itself it's an area of research. So these are all the key areas where we need to do optimization. We need to improve. These are all the demand requirements. We need to improve the range of the vehicle. We need to improve the acceleration of the vehicle. Everything is actually related to some of the characteristics of the battery pack. That is what we are going to discuss today. So when we look at a battery pack system, we call it as like different components. So when we look at the different components of a battery pack, it starts from the cells, which are the smallest component in a battery pack. It can be a lithium-ion cell, it can be a nickel-cadmium cell, or any other chemistry. I'm not going to. We are not going to look at any chemistry in detail here, but look at from a pack level perspective. So there are different cells that make a battery pack, and the whole battery pack is nothing but having lot of components. So and also hazardous components. So we need to have a structure. We need to have a enclosure, a metal structure, or it can be a non-metallic structure. But end of the day, we need to safeguard the components which are present inside the battery pack. It can be the cells or the allied electrical and electronic units, right? And in addition to the mechanical structure, we also have the thermal management system, where we need to this part covers the cooling system related to the battery pack, right? It can be the components, cooling related, heating related components present in the battery pack, which is going to heat or cool down the battery at different point of operation. And similarly, the final very important one is the part of the battery pack is the BMS, the battery management system, which is mostly sitting inside the battery pack or close to the battery pack, right? So this BMS makes sure that the whole battery pack performs as per the design, as per the requirement, and meeting all the safety requirements, right? So today we will, in this session, we'll focus more on the mechanical structure, thermal management, design consideration for the battery pack, and the cell side, how it has been decided. So when we look at a battery pack in the industry today for the EV application, we see that there are basically classified into power type application or energy type application, right? So depending upon the characteristic of a vehicle, right? If that vehicle demands a very high range of more than 200-300 kilometers, then that is specifically called as an energy type application. Or if it is an application where it is an SUV vehicle where it demands very high acceleration and a considerable amount of range, then we call it as power type application. And some applications, they will demand both high power requirement as well as high energy requirement as well, a more range efficient range as well. So all these things, before selecting, before starting a battery pack design project, we need to consider very good what is the type of battery pack that we are going to develop. We need to consider that in the beginning, right? And I would like to inform the faculties present here that there are many startup companies in India right now who are ready to outsource the battery pack related design projects. Even our company is also taking some of those projects. So if in case any faculty present here who are actually interested to work in such collaborative projects, we can associate at institute level also, even department level, institute level also it is possible. So feel free to reach me. I will provide the contact details at the end of the session. So there are many battery pack related projects are getting outsourced from the startup companies. So definitely we can contribute to such projects in a very good way. So when we look at a battery pack, from a pack level perspective, you can see that these are all the different cells which are applied in a battery pack. It can be a cylindrical cell like this, or it can be a prismatic cell like this, or it can be a pouch type cell like this. Whereas the components are going to remain same. There is going to be an anode, there is going to be a cathode, there is going to be a separator, there is going to be pressure relief pins and terminals. All these things are going to be common for all the cells. Only thing is they're geometrically they are different, and sometimes the ability to perform at extreme conditions might be different for different cell types, right? So these kind of cells are arranged inside a module like this. So for example, a module can have up to 10-20 cells inside it, and likewise, you can see in this particular example, we have around 12 modules. So if I say 10 cells are inside each module, then 12 into 10, 120 cells will be present at the overall pack level. And in addition, what you can understand from here is also the housing. That is the mechanical structure. So we have the upper housing part of the housing, the lower part of the housing. This is the main housing. We call it as the enclosure of the battery pack, which is having the integrated cooling loop inside it, right? And we have the base plate supporting the battery pack, which is nothing but to provide the underbody protection, right? So the underbody protection is also provided beneath the enclosure, basically to prevent any sort of damage that can affect the battery pack using any either it can be from the stone or any other environmental side. It can be rainwater or any sort of environmental protection. All this environmental protection is provided by the underbody protection and the base plate enclosure. So all these things are make this battery pack waterproof, dustproof at different levels, right? We'll talk about that. And in addition to these materials and mechanical components, we also have the battery management system, the BMS, which is sitting inside the battery pack. And in addition to that, all these orange color high voltage connectors, cables, strips, bus bars, whatever we can say, all these are present inside a battery pack. So, and in addition to that, every module has its own module level controller. We will talk about that in detail by tomorrow, but so every module will have a module level controller, and all this module level controller finally connect to the BMS, battery management system. So that's the final control part is sitting there. So when we look at this, is what a battery pack is for a general automotive application, and depending upon either it is a two-wheeler, either it is a three-wheeler or a passenger car, depending upon the application, the size, shape, and the overall capacity, the voltage, all these factors will differ, right? So we will take some examples. End of the session, we will take some example from Nissan Leaf. I'll showcase the example from Nissan Leaf to understand the whole development they have taken for their battery pack application. So when we look at a battery pack for electric vehicle application, the voltage of the pack and below that the voltage of every single cell, right? So the voltage of the pack, what is it depend on? It depends upon the motor design requirements, right? So we have a motor and inverter, which is end of the day the batteries are going to support these inverters and motors, right? So when we are selecting a battery pack, when we are developing a battery pack, especially when we are sizing the battery pack, right? Sizing the battery pack for a certain application is a very challenging aspect, and right sizing is very important. So when we are sizing a voltage of the pack, we need to consider what is the motor design requirement, and that means motor design requirement, where it is coming from? Vehicle design requirement, right? So if the motor, how can we decide how much amount of power is required for the motor, how much amount of torque is required for the motor, how much amount of current, peak current is required for the motor, or continuous current requirement of the motor? All these things, what is the factor that it is depend on? It is depend on the vehicle design. So if the vehicle is expecting 200 km/h top speed, and if the vehicle is expecting 0 to 100 km acceleration in 10 seconds, if these are all the expectations from the vehicle side, obviously that those requirements are transferred to motor design requirement, and then the motor design requirements are transferred to pack level requirement for the battery pack. So here the voltage of the battery pack is mainly dependent on the motor related factors, parameters, like the current requirement and the voltage requirement of the motor, and the voltage of a single cell, basically that is dependent on the chemistry that we are going to select, right? And it is also going to get affected because of the requirements from the motor side as well, right? So depending upon the pack level current requirement, pack level voltage requirement, the single cell requirements will be developed. So if the voltage of the single cell is ranging from 3.75 volt and the ampere hour for the cell is close to 24, 20 ampere, 20 Ah, right? These are all cell level requirements. All these things might vary depending upon the cell chemistry that we are going to select for that particular application. And number of series, how much number of series cells we're going to get connected. Basically, most of the battery pack application, we see that the even number of cells are always preferred, because that is what preferred for a battery management system also, so that the even number of cells can be connected in the system. At the same time, the overall cell supervisory circuits also decided based upon the number of cells in series. So all these are very important factors to be considered in the beginning stage, of the battery pack design itself, right? So let us take this example. Let us take this example. When you look at this voltage per cell, voltage per cell for a different chemistry, for example, lithium nickel manganese cobalt oxide, it is one of the chemistry widely used in the industry. And the second widely used one in the industry is lithium ferrophosphate, and the third one is the lithium titanate, which is not generally applicable for EV application because of its cost, very high cost in the present situation, but maybe in the future it might be possible. But right now, in India, right now especially, these two chemistries are widely applied for the battery pack design application. And you can see that the voltage per cell characteristic is different. For NMC, it is 3.6 volt per cell, and for LFP, it is 3.2 volt per cell. And total number of cells in series, it might differ. For example, if it is a 475 volt pack, right, then how many cells I need to connect in series? We can calculate it from here. It is approximately 132 number of cells we need to connect in series in order to achieve this particular pack voltage level. And if it is the LFP, then the number of cells need to be connected in series might be more, because the voltage per cell is very lesser. So today, a very important aspect when we are selecting a cell for a battery pack application, we need to consider what is the important factor is the voltage per cell. So voltage per cell decides the size of your battery pack, right? So we need to select a cell type, cell chemistry, which is going to have a more voltage per cell, so that we will be able to get we will be able to achieve a smaller battery pack, right? And when we have a smaller battery pack, it is definitely going to contribute for lightweight design, lighter design of the vehicle, and obviously it is going to improve the range of the vehicle, right? So all these are important. It's all related. Each and every factor is related to one another. So if one factor is if not properly selected, then obviously it is going to have a chain reaction. It is going to affect each and every parameters. And when you look at the pack energy and capacity, the energy of the pack, the overall watt hour capacity of the pack, whatever energy of the pack, definitely that is dependent on the motor continuous current requirement and the motor peak current requirement. So if the motor consumes, say for example, 50 ampere or 50 ampere as the continuous current, and it requires 180 to 250 ampere as the peak current requirement, so obviously we need to consider both the continuous current requirement of the motor for the battery pack development and for the peak current requirement of the motor for the battery pack development. So both the factors are very important, and we need to check what is the peak current requirement and how long does it need this peak current. So if I say 200 ampere is the peak current requirement, how long it needs that peak current, whether it is for 1 second, 2 second, 5 second, 10 second. So the timing for which the peak current requirement is there is also very much important to properly size the capacity of a battery pack cell. That is very, very important. So when we look at ampere hour capacity, AH, say if we need to achieve 100 AH capacity of a battery pack, then if each cell is having AH of 44, for example, the nickel manganese oxide batteries, they generally have the ability to carry more ampere hour. Say for example 44 ampere hour if it is the capacity, and for LFP also it is actually possible. Even today in the market, up to 100 ampere hour LFP batteries are also available for single cell. For single cell, it can carry up to 100 ampere hour. That is possible today in the market. So it can range, it can differ from one cell to another cell. I will show some examples. But it is also important factor. Not only the voltage characteristic, even the ampere hour characteristic is also very important to decide the size of the battery pack cell or pack or a module or a whole pack. So we need to, as a design, when we start a design project for a battery pack, we need to consider all these factors so that we can achieve a smallest battery pack as much as possible. That is why, even when we are working in some of the battery pack design projects, we make sure we try to give our customer as much as benefit as possible, right? Even though our customer asks, they give a target of, like, for example, 50 kilogram for the battery pack, we don't think that, we try to even go beyond that 50 kilogram. We try to reduce the battery pack weight further, meeting the same specific requirements given by the customer. So that's how we work. Similarly, that's how the general design also works, right? So we need to look at the weight and all limitations. At the same time, we need to improve the requirements of the battery pack. And depending upon the type of application, as I mentioned earlier, whether it is a energy type application or it is a power type application. Look at these two examples of the discharge characteristics of two examples. Can you people tell me the main difference, the major difference that you can identify between this energy type of cell characteristic and power type of cell characteristic? What is the highlighted, the key difference that you are able to visualize here? Any participant? You can even drop it in the chat box as well. Let me see if any comments are there. Very good, sir. Yes, it is very concentrated. You can see the discharge characteristic in a power type cell. Okay. And its ability to sustain for a longer period of time. That is also one of the key difference we can see. The same cell of different, the similar cell, but different characteristic, the same capacity, but different characteristic. They are able to, prolong the capacity, prolong the available capacity for a longer period of time. At the same time, the power cells, they discharge quicker, but they have the ability to discharge faster at a higher rate of current. So that is the main difference between a power type cell and an energy type cell. We can see that the end of discharge happens very quick, at different point of time. But whereas in a power type cell, end of discharge, it is able to sustain at higher current, higher C ratings like 2C and more, 2C and more, even maintaining the higher voltage. So that is what the higher benefit of this power cell. Especially this is suitable for applications where we need to have such a performance requirement. Such performance requirements are there. So when these cells are fully charged, it is going to 4.2 volt, and when they are fully discharged, they are coming close to 2.5, right? And basically 3.0 is considered as the end of discharge. Most of the battery packs technology companies, they don't allow the battery cell to go below 3.0. So the BMS will make sure that it stays within this threshold. Above, it will not go more than 4.2 and below 3.0. That's how the BMS tries to, operate this battery pack, right? And when we calculate the battery pack, at a battery pack energy, today, whenever we design a battery pack, we need to definitely consider the usable capacity factor. As everyone knows, the battery pack cannot be 100% utilized. If it is 100% discharged every time, then its lifetime will be under big question mark. So when we are developing a battery pack for a certain application, we need to we need to consider the usable capacity, which is only 80% of certain application. So we need to provide, say, for example, on the lower side, 0 to 20, it is not usable. And similarly, on the upper side, 80 to 100, that is not usable. So you can say 20, it is provided always on the safer side. But some companies, they don't follow the same. They allow up to 90% discharge sometimes, and in the other case, they allow for charging, fast charging up to 85%, and 15% it will be slow charged. So likewise, it is possible. The trend is different from different manufacturers depending upon their available charging system technology availability. And this is how basically we calculate, the overall continuous discharge capability, how to calculate it. So how many cells in parallel, multiply that with the maximum continuous cell current of each cell, and what is the maximum C rating of that particular cell. So when we calculate this, we will be able to know that the maximum continuous discharge of the particular cell is 450 ampere. And similarly we can calculate the peak current, the peak current current possibilities of a battery cell, a battery pack at a pack level, depending upon the number of cells in parallel, the overall rating, the ampere rating of each cell, and the C rating of the pack of the particular cell. Right, the C rating means it is nothing but the rate at which the cell can be discharged or charged. Right. So if I say 100 ampere battery, 100 Ah battery, right, and if I say 0.5 C, 0.5 C, what is the current rating? If there is a 100 ampere hour battery, and if I am saying we can discharge this battery with 0.5 C, then what is the current rating of this battery? Discharge current rating? Any participant can give the answer? 100 Ah battery, and I'm telling it is having a 0.5 C rating for this 100 Ah battery. So then what is the discharge current for this battery pack? So 0.5 C means in the sense it is 50 ampere, right? It is going to be 50 ampere. And if I'm saying 0.25 C, it is going to be 25 ampere current. And if it is 2 C, then it is 200 ampere. So end of the day, the C rating determines the charge current and discharge current of a battery pack or cell. So it is one of the very important specification that we need to understand. So for a better understanding, I am taking one example, a benchmark data for a cell. Let me take this example. See, this is an example of a lithium-ion cell, and look at the specifications mentioned here. Look at the specifications. This particular cell is having a nominal capacity of 44 Ah and a voltage rating. The minimum voltage is 3.0, maximum voltage is 4.2, and the nominal voltage is 3.65. That is the voltage. It is between the charge, full discharge and full charge. And you can see the recommended charge voltage is 4.1 volt, and this is all the different characteristics. And look at this particular specification clearly mentioned. The continuous current rating, C rating for charging is 2C, and if it is a fast charger, fast charging we can take it for 4C rating maximum, and discharging is up to continuous current for 3C rating and pulse current for 10C rating. And up to the life cycle of this battery pack is 6,000 cycles. 6,000 cycles means it is close to 16 years, almost 16 years of life cycle, right? So today there is a very big anxiety among public whether battery packs will sustain for longer years, whether they will whether they will operate for longer years, whether it is possible for them to operate for longer years. Yes, the recent trends, whatever I'm talking, whatever I'm discussing, it's all the things which is happening in 2020 and 2021. Right, it's not old stories which I am making here. So all these present scenario, these are all present scenarios. The development is going towards 6,000 cycles, you can understand. So 6,000 cycles means it is more than 15 years of lifetime. I think it is definitely a very good life cycle they are providing. But right now this is not the life cycle provided by the manufacturers in India. In India right now we are getting a life cycle warranty of 3,000 cycles from the manufacturer, which is close to 8 year of the life cycle for lifetime of the battery pack. I think 8 year is also a good, it is a decent decent warranty that they have provided. I think as a customer, what do you think as a customer perspective? In a customer perspective, is there any opinion from any participant? What do you think the life cycle should be provided for a battery pack or a lifetime? Yes, sir. It is one cycle per day. That's how it is calculated, sir. Yes. depending upon the usage. So today the two-wheelers and all these things, they are using it in the same way. The present electric vehicle, it is like one cycle per day. One cycle, it is one full charge and one full discharge. So even in worst case, if we consider 2 cycles per day, right? Because one cycle itself will provide you a range up to 100 kilometer. I don't think a two-wheeler is driven for such a higher range per day, right? Very rare cases they might run. But as a customer perspective, what is your opinion? What do you people think the life cycle or lifetime of a battery pack should be provided? Any opinions? This would also help our upcoming projects as well. Any opinions, please feel free to give it as a message. Maybe Gopi sir, what is your opinion, sir? Okay. Okay. So he's giving 10 to 15 years. If it is provided, that would be better, right? So today I think scrappage policy is being launched in India. Everyone know that, I believe. Yes, so thank you for your answer, sir. So that's why, so today the battery pack lifetime trend is actually increasing. Earlier, they were only giving 1,500 life cycles. And recently, last 1 year, I am seeing most of the companies, they are giving 2,000, 3,000 life cycles actually. So I think step by step, and some companies like Tata, Nexon and all, they are providing up to 100 ampere actually, sorry, the overall life cycle, 8 years of lifetime. So wait a moment. Yes. And the overall pack voltage, as I mentioned, depending upon the application, whether it is a electric vehicle application or it is a hybrid vehicle application, the overall voltage requirement. The trend is really changing a lot in the last 1 year. There is a lot of improvement happened in this particular domain. Similar to the switching frequencies, similar to the IGBTs and all these things. They have been going in a very high switching frequencies. Possibilities were there, more than 100 kilohertz, 150 kilohertz were also being operated in certain cases in automotive electric vehicle applications. Similarly, even the battery pack trend, right? The battery pack trend is going towards 800 volt for a passenger car. Earlier, this more than 500 volt, it was only preferred for trucks and buses. But recently, the last 1 year, there is a huge jump on the voltage for an electric vehicle passenger car application, and I am seeing around 800 voltage even applied for a passenger car market, right? So that the whole voltage that depends upon the number of cells. So we can see that if a cell is able to carry up to 4.2 volt maximum, then you can consider that it is up to 96 cells we need to consider in order to achieve a peak voltage of 400 volt. Right, so the number of cells keep on building. For example, an example from a vehicle called Tesla Model 3, they have up to close to 3,200 cells inside the whole battery pack. Right, so because they use a small cylindrical cell earlier, and now they are moving for a bigger cylindrical cell. So definitely there is a lot of scope for cell numbers in coming days, coming years. There will be more number of cells increasing in the pack at a pack level, and per cell capacity, per cell voltage, that is also a factor that decides it, right? And moreover, in addition to deciding the voltage ampere hour, right, one of the main drawback today, one of the main challenge today is the design for reliability. One of the best, let me give an example, participants. Very recently, there was a news in the online. Just go and check it. Hyundai Kona. I think everyone know Hyundai Kona electric vehicle, right? Hyundai Kona electric vehicle. It has been globally launched. Hyundai has launched that vehicle globally, all over the world, right? But the vehicle is being sold all over the world. Very recently, that Hyundai Kona has been recalled in a huge volume in the market, right? The huge recall has happened in Hyundai Kona, which is actually costing them actually very huge amount. Almost 82,000 cars, 82,000 cars have been recalled from this market, from the present market, and you can see that it is costing them close to 900 million US dollar. 900 million US dollar of cost. You can calculate it in terms of Indian value, how much it will be. 900 million US dollar, right? Because of a mistake, because of a manufacturing defect that was created inside the battery pack of the Hyundai Kona electric vehicle, they have recalled all these cars present in the market, and they are going to spend nearly 900 million dollar of US dollar for replacement of this battery pack, right? So what you can understand from here, if we are not able to design the battery pack, not only the design side, even the manufacturability is also very important, right? So considerations on the manufacturability is very important, and we need to consider the serviceability. All these factors, if they are not properly done, that is going to cost huge amount of money for the manufacturer. So this Hyundai is a best example how a small defect, it is actually a small defect happened in a lithium-ion cell, which was manufactured by LG Chem. The cell was manufactured by LG Chem for this company, for Hyundai, but the pack was assembled by Hyundai. Okay, so one of the major problem was the manufacturing defect that happened between the anode and cathode separator, and that defect has led to battery packs catching fire globally. Nearly 16 cars catched fire at different areas of the world, like in Canada one car, US some cars, and in China some cars, in Korea some cars. Only 16 cars catched the fire out of 82,000 cars sold in the market, but they have to replace all the 82,000 cars battery pack. How does it sound for you participants? What do you think about it? Kindly put your opinion on this, as a customer or as a research scholar also. Put your opinion here. So here, when we are developing a battery pack, we need to implement rules like design for Six Sigma in order to maintain a proper quality at all levels of the battery pack development. And even the design for reliability is very, very important, right? So we need to ensure that the battery pack will properly function for its lifetime, warranty predictions, reliability, accelerated life testing, physics of failure. The battery pack designer should know what is the failure modes possible on a pack level, cell level, right? So all these are coming under the design for reliability and design for Six Sigma. Basically, the battery pack manufacturer should implement these techniques on the battery pack design to make a better battery pack design, very stringent design meeting all the safety requirements. So he or she need to implement analysis like failure mode effect analysis. So they need to implement a DFMEA for a battery pack. For example, in a few years back, a few months back, or a few years back, people were using fasteners, bolts and nut connection for connecting the cells in series, right? Now today, most of the companies are avoiding the fasteners. Instead of fasteners, they are going for spot welding. They are going for spot welding of the cells, one cell to another cell, using nickel strips, right? So one of the main reason they went from fasteners to the spot welding is because there are more chances for the fasteners to loosen during the vibration of the battery pack. And everyone know the operating condition of India. For example, a country like India, where we don't have very good, excellent roads at all the corners of the country, right? So the roads might be different in different places. Even cities don't have excellent road infrastructure today, right? At different conditions, environmental conditions like flood, definitely there will be a lot of vibrations. And the pack that we are making, a cell we are assembling, if they are having a fasteners, obviously there are chances that they can loosen from time to time. So when we are developing a battery design, battery system, battery component level design, we need to consider all these factors. How to which is the more better connecting technology between the joining technology between the pack to one cell to another cell, or cell to pack and cell to module, or module to pack. What is the better joining technology between each and every component to maintain a very strong connected system, very strongly placed battery pack. Otherwise, with respect to variation, they will keep on loosening. So loosening will happen of the fasteners, and when the fasteners get loosened, the battery pack will not properly function. So if the battery pack is built for providing 100 kilowatt hour capacity, the battery pack will lose its capacity up to there are up to chances up to 30-40% drop in the power if there is a loose of fasteners in the cells, right? And one more chance is it can also lead to a short circuit inside the cell or a battery pack. So on the module level, so increase in the heat generation, increase in the impedance due to the loose connection. All these things are the problems that might generate because of improper design considerations for a battery cell or a module, right? And not only the design level, component level, even the process. So if we are having a process of assembling the pack, even those process has to be optimized accordingly. So as a research scholar, the research as a research scholar working in a manufacturing domain, or like in the mechanical domain, basically you can concentrate on improving the process, implementing a better process to make sure meeting all the failure mode defect analysis requirements for the particular component, right? So basically this is how a failure mode effect analysis will be done by an industry professional. And what we do is generally we prepare a chart like this. Anyone from the participant, have you ever used this FMEA chart anywhere in your previous projects? Failure mode effect analysis charts in your previous projects anywhere? Anyone? Any faculties? Anyone? Have you ever used failure mode effect analysis chart for any projects related to engineering? So if not, definitely I would strongly recommend you to you as well as your students, you to practice using FMEAs, FMEA charts for any. You can take any example from a electric vehicle application and start preparing an FMEA chart. Basically, in our student trainings, we actually train the students preparing FMEAs, because these are all very important activities that they will be doing in a company after they join a company, either as a GET or a bigger engineering questions as well. So these are all very important activities they will be involved in. So we can see that it talks about the potential failure mode. It talks about the potential effects of the failure, right? Severity of that failure. If the severity of that failure, we need to rate that severity out of 10 scale, and we need to rate the occurrence, how rarely or how frequently this failure might occur, right? And detection, if there is any, say for example, if there is a temperature rise, whether there is any detection methodology we have in the battery pack, right, for detecting the temperature rise, right? Whether there is any control methodology to, after detecting, if there is any control methodology to implement, right? So all these things are mentioned in the FMEA chart, and this determines whether this whole design is safer or not, right? It is a very important part of engineering design. And I think any battery pack design project, it is definitely requested to implement actually, right? And one more very important aspect when we are developing a battery pack is building the smallest replaceable unit, right? So when we have a battery pack, let me go to the picture directly, that the initial picture what I've shown. See, when we have a battery pack, we have so many components like this. The upper cover, lower cover, enclosure, module, and inside module, if I go, we have a cell like this. And inside cell, if we go, we have an anode, cathode, separator, terminal, pressure relief vent. These are all different components. BMS, inside BMS, if I go, there will be a battery disconnect unit. Do you people remember what are all the components present in the battery disconnect unit, which I explained in the first day session? Let us see how many people remember that battery disconnect unit. Do you people remember the battery disconnect unit? We had a few components there. I explained that in the first day. That component is actually placed inside the battery pack only. Can anyone name the component sitting inside that battery disconnect unit? Do you people remember the relays? Do you people remember the relays? The positive relay and negative relay, and then a pre-charge relay, pre-charge resistor, current sensor, right? These are all the components which were actually present inside the battery disconnect unit, and that battery disconnect unit is actually nothing but placed inside this battery pack only most of the time, right? So we need to so this is how it will look like, right? So when we look at the battery disconnect unit, this is how it will look like: battery positive relay, negative relay, pre-charge contactor, pre-charge resistor, cells. So many components are there. So when we are designing a battery pack, we decide, as a design engineer, we need to decide which is going to be the smallest replaceable unit. And can you people tell me what is the significance of having a smallest replaceable unit? Any participant tell me what is the purpose? What is the significance of you having a smallest replaceable unit? Let us see who is going to answer this question. You're all faculties. Definitely, I know most of the time you will be asking questions to the students. And here now, right now, you are getting questions from my side. What do you think is the significance of having a smallest replaceable unit? Any participant? Imagine you are now purchasing an electric car from this X company. From this X company, after some 2 years, immediately you are getting a problem. You are getting a problem. And the problem is actually with the relay, which is present inside the battery disconnect unit. Very good, sir. Very good. I'm getting the answers from Gopi, sir. Can reduce the downtime and less cost for maintenance. Definitely. Very good. So it is going to be a very important factor for both the manufacturer as well as the customer. So from a customer perspective, if I am saying actually the problem is with the relay, but if the manufacturer is saying, sir, you have to replace the whole battery disconnect unit, even though if the problem is only on the positive relay, if you have to replace the whole module, the whole battery disconnect unit, will it be a good option for a customer? Is it a good option for a customer? Definitely not, right? Definitely not. So the customer would say, can't you replace only the positive relay? And they may say, no, sir, we can't do that. The smallest replaceable unit is the battery disconnect unit. You have to completely replace it. You have to bear the cost. Is it acceptable? No. And similarly, today, as I told, the problem happened in the Hyundai Kona. That is on the separator, which is a very smallest component inside the cell of a whole battery pack. So obviously they have to bear the whole cost of the battery pack, because it is on the whole battery pack, which is the heart of the battery pack. Mainly it is the cells, it is the module. And if we are going to change each and every cell, then obviously whole module going to change and everything is going to change. So that is going to cost huge for the manufacturer. So whenever we develop a battery pack, we need to have a good smallest replaceable unit that would give a better service and maintenance option. And as sir mentioned, yes, it will also give the timeline. So if there is any service, I don't need to wait for so many days or weeks of time to replace that component. Just a fraction of hours of time, I can replace that component and I can start my vehicle running. So it is when we are developing, working on a design project of a battery pack, we need to concentrate on the replaceable unit, smallest replaceable unit of the cell, of the battery pack. Right. So till now, is there any questions till this part of discussion? So as a when we look at the challenges, the challenges on each and every stage. I'll be showing the coming further slides where the material level, design level, research scope is there. We'll be talking about that. But this is the methodology. What we explained is a methodology from an industrial person perspective, from a design engineer perspective. And one of the major challenge with the the battery pack side is the thermal management. So we will be talking about the thermal management at the vehicle level by tomorrow. But this particular session, this particular topic in this particular section, I would like to focus on the thermal management design for a battery pack separately. So how to decide, whether a battery pack needs cooling system or not? How to decide that? Any idea from the participants? What do you think that these are the factors that decides whether the battery pack needs cooling system or not? Kindly put your drop your answers in the chat box. If a battery pack needs cooling system or not, what does it depend on? Any inputs? Yes. So I'm just making you people to think a bit. Don't think I'm asking you so many questions, sir and professors, all professors. I know you're all esteemed professors, but this is just to make you engage. Engage with the session. Yes, very good, sir. I think I'm getting an answer of charging and discharge rate. Very good. So if we have a very high charging discharging rate, definitely there will be a high temperature rise. So then definitely we may need to provide a proper thermal management there. Yes. So from Alan Emmanuel, yes, I'm getting a answer. If the battery temperature exceeds a particular threshold value, yes. So to maintain the battery temperature, battery pack temperature or a cell temperature within a threshold value. That's your answer, sir. Yes. Thank you for your answer. Operating conditions. So if the operating environment itself is very hot, right? Like Kerala, for example, it's a very humid place and very hot. The temperatures are, during the summer time, it is going more than, always it is more than 35 degrees Celsius. Right. So obviously we need to have a very good thermal management at this kind of extreme temperature conditions. Consider places like Delhi where the temperature goes to 50 degrees Celsius positive. Right. So that operating environment, whether the battery pack is working in a very closed environment or an open environment, or the duty cycle, whether the battery pack is going to work 24/7 or 8 hours per day, or depending upon the usage profile, the thermal management requirements will be there. And depending upon the cell chemistry that we are going to select, it might or it might not need a thermal management system, because some type of cell chemistries, they have a very high temperature withstanding capacity. So those type of cell chemistry, if they are used in the battery pack, then we don't need to even apply a dedicated thermal management system. We can just have a natural air cooling there, right? So depending upon the cell chemistry, that is also one more factor that decides. So basically, what is the purpose of having a thermal management for a battery pack is basically to maintain the temperature difference of a battery pack between 2 to 3 degrees Celsius from the coolest cell to the warmest cell. That is the important requirement. Because when the battery cells become hotter, when they become hot, they will age faster. And when they age faster, they will lose their overall calendar life. So they will reduce its capacity. They will reduce its capacity permanently. So that is why maintaining the temperature of the battery pack within a threshold is very, very important at a battery pack design level, right? And when we look at the battery pack, it is at different stages. Different forms of cooling and thermal management is applicable, either through radiation from the battery cell directly to a nearby component like a copper, for example, an aluminum casing, or it can be through a direct conduction between the bus bar. Even bus bar, which is actually transferring the current from the cell to a module, right? Cell to a pack. It is also doing a job of cooling, because these bus bars are using copper conductors, right? And these bus bars have the ability to transfer the heat from the cell to the other component. So it is also conducting some of the heat. And in using a cooling plate also, we can, using the conduction and convection principle, we can do the cooling system design for the system, for the battery pack, right? And when we look at the battery pack system, the operating temperature, it can be within minus 20 degrees Celsius to plus 45 degrees Celsius. This is a operational temperature, but the optimal temperature for a better battery pack, for a better functional of a battery pack, is 10 degrees Celsius to 35 degrees Celsius. This is the best temperature range for a battery pack application, below which, if it goes, the cooling heating system will turn on. Below 10 degrees Celsius, if a battery pack goes, heating system will turn on. And more than 35 degrees Celsius, if a battery system goes, obviously the cooling system will turn on to bring down the temperature. And the extreme temperature that a battery pack system can survive is minus 40 degrees Celsius till plus 60 degrees Celsius. This is the maximum temperature they can survive properly. After which, minus 40, below 40, below minus 20, minus 40, obviously the electrolyte which is sitting inside the battery pack, they will start becoming freeze. They will attain their freezing point and they will become freezed. So obviously the temperature should not go below this particular temperature. And today, that is why the new trend is coming. Today we can see solid state batteries. Very recently you would have seen in the news, solid state batteries are implemented by Toyota, and that is having a solid electrolyte, and there is no problem of freezing or in extreme temperatures. And it is also having a very high charging and discharging rate capability compared to a conventional lithium-ion battery. So today the solid state batteries are having a very good lifetime as well. They are giving a lifetime up to 15-20 years. Life cycles are close to, they are close to for 5,000 to 6,000 life cycles, and which are already competitive enough for the lithium-ion batteries, conventional lithium-ion batteries. Right? You can see from this particular temperature range, cold temperature, basically they increase the impedance within the cell. Therefore it will be resisting the flow of ions and it will reduce the capacity. Especially these problems arise in countries like Canada and some of the European countries and some of the US states as well, where the temperatures go below 10 degrees Celsius and even minus also, where in those cases if the thermal management is not provided properly, then definitely it will increase the impedance of at the cell level. So it will definitely lead to all sort of problems in the whole pack, right? So when we look at the thermal mass consideration, a copper bus bar will be able to absorb more heat than a plastic cover, conventional cover, and at the same time, that means passive cooling, without using any active cooling system, right? So when we look at active thermal management, in active thermal management in the battery pack, they use either a forced air or a forced liquid as the cooling medium to circulate inside the cooling loop and bring down the temperature. So today, many manufacturers, most of the manufacturers, they are applying this active thermal management system only, right, for the battery pack level design. Right, so this is, you can see very clearly, air is generally not as effective as a cooling medium as a liquid. It causes the cell at the beginning of the airflow to be cooler than the cells at the end of the airflow, and overall it reduces the life of the battery pack when we have an air-based cooling system, thermal management system. A best example is the old Nissan Leaf. Before 2015, the Nissan Leaf, which was there in the market, they were using air-based cooling system, natural air-based cooling system. Even forced air cooling system is also sometimes not sufficient to cool down the battery at extreme conditions, right? And most of the companies today, they are using a liquid cooling system, which is basically a 50-50% of water come ethylene glycol. One of the main drawback of this cooling system is it is heavier, right? It is going to have a cooling loop running inside the system, and it is going to it is going to definitely cost higher for the compared to the conventional battery system, conventional cooling. At the same time, on the effectiveness of the cooling, yes, definitely the liquid cooling is more effective compared to the air-based cooling system. So you can see the liquid cooling module here. This is how it looks like. And let me take a small a video to explain you people of how the battery pack integration happens actually. So this is an example of a hybrid electric vehicle where the battery pack is there. So let me just go to the battery pack directly. So this is the whole battery pack. So the whole battery pack has number of cells connected in series parallel combination. So likewise, the cells will be connected in modules. You can see this is like, these are all each and every, it's a cell, and every module, you can see these are all every module, and every module has 2 cells actually. That's how they have built it in this particular model. And this is what the battery disconnect unit, right? So today morning we have talked about the battery disconnect unit, right? That is the battery disconnect unit, the BMS, everything sitting inside this battery pack. And here is where the connectors, the output connectors are coming there. So when you open a single complete structure, so we call it as cell group. So inside one cell group, there will be 2 cells. So inside every 2 cells, there will be one cooling plate, sitting, which is common to both the cells. So there will be a cooling fluid coming inside this and going inside this particular, running inside this plate, transferring the heat from the cell to this plate. It will absorb the heat which is transferred from the cell to this plate, and it will transfer the heat from the plate to the cooling loop. So we call it as the thermal fin. So likewise, so many cell groups are added. So this is how the battery cell group is being basically added, right? So that's how we arrange, And can you people tell me what was the cooling loop which was there in the video, whether this one or this one? Liquid cooling plate method or a fin method? So in this case, you can see for every cell, the cooling loop will go run inside that cooling plate and it comes back. Likewise, it goes. In this case, there is a fin attached with this cell, and the cooling line only goes in this line. It is only going in this cooling line, and only the fin is attached. So the one which we saw in this picture was a cooling plate type method. So even though they call it as a thermal fin, it is basically a cooling plate type because it is actually circulating over the whole surface area of the cell, right? That is the type of cooling method they have implemented there. And basically, not only this method, even passive thermal management is also can be applied on the battery pack today. So today, battery pack design, they even apply passive thermal management. So without having without having a liquid cooling or any other medium, they can go for passive cooling. So using the aluminum or metal housings as the cooling structure, they try to dissipate the heat, right? So trend is differently going in different manufacturer. Look at this picture. This is a very important picture. Look at this picture. You can clearly understand the different thermal management methodology adopted by different companies. For example, if you look at BMW i3, they have implemented separate cooling system for gearbox, motor, AC/DC inverter, DC/DC converter, charger module, and separate cooling loop for battery. Whereas models like Tesla Model S, they are implementing a common cooling loop system, active cooling system for all the components, including the battery pack, gearbox, motor, AC/DC inverter, converter, DC-DC converter and charging module. Common cooling loop for all the components, right? So the trend is different from different manufacturers. According to their cost optimization targets, they go for different options. But when we are integrating, when we are packaging a whole battery pack, these are all the questions that that particular engineer or a design person or a research person should ask himself. What is the application for which we are making the battery pack? Where will be the battery pack will be mounted? Whether will this battery pack will be mounted below the driver's seat? Whether the battery pack will be in the top of the vehicle? Whether it is going to be in the rear side of the vehicle? Right? Will it mount under the hood, passenger compartment, or under the chassis? What is the sealing and environmental requirements? Will it need a IP rating? Right? Will it need a waterproof? Will the battery pack will need a dust proof? Right? And is the battery pack will be behaving as a structural component? Structural components mean what? If there is a crash, if there is a accident or a crash impact, will those forces will be absorbed by the battery pack? So if it is a structural component, yes, it needs to absorb it. If it is not a structural pack, it is not required to absorb those forces. So as a design, in the design area, we need to consider all these factors. And what is the type of shock and vibration that will be experienced by the battery pack? What will be the EMI, EMC impact on the battery pack? Whether there will be any radiation from the nearby components? What is the distance between the battery pack with the other heat generating components? What is the distance between the battery pack and the passenger? And what is the serviceability? Whether the battery pack will be serviceable? Say that, take the case of Tesla Model S. In Tesla Model S, we cannot service the battery. The battery is completely replaced. If there is any problem, we need to break the battery only, because it is completely sealed. We have to break the battery, damage the battery to open it. So such companies, they are 100%, they rely on the design. They are very confident on their design of their battery pack that it will not need any replacement. But some manufacturers, they are not 100% sure about their design, so they will provide some sort of serviceability factor, replaceability factor, since they are not 100% sure of the functionality of the battery pack. So one of the very key component of the battery pack is the battery enclosure. That is a main important component. So when we are working anything related to enclosure, if you are a mechanical faculty or material science related faculty, right, or manufacturing related faculty, so definitely there is a huge scope of research on the battery pack related activity. So we need to consider the factors like vehicle crash resistance, side impact resistance, firewall protection for the passenger compartment, right, and thermal management. We need to provide proper we can work on something. We can make a battery pack design without thermal management system also, by optimally managing each and every component inside it, and the proper sealing, shielding towards making the battery pack very durable for extreme conditions like rain, flood, or hot climates, dusty environment, right? And to achieve minimizing the weight and the overall cost, to achieve a better vehicle integration. So these are all different criteria that we need to consider when battery enclosure is coming. So when you open a battery pack like this, completely disassemble the battery pack, you will be able to see these are all the different components. So the upper cover, the frame, the structure, the aluminum crash structure which is placed inside the module. So all these modules, they will be like they will not get any forces on them directly if there is any crash. If there is any crash, the forces will be absorbed by this crash structure, and there will be a housing tray on which the modules are going to sit, and there will be a battery frame, which is this battery frame is especially to withstand the forces acting on them during the crash impact, right? So each and every component is today. So now the question is, what is the material behind it? Today, most of the battery pack components are made up of aluminum. And let us take this example. And I'll come back to that slide. Today, most of the battery packs, let me zoom this picture. It will be a very useful picture for people to understand the trend. Today, these are all the different electric hybrid vehicles present in the market. And you can very clearly see aluminum is the most used enclosure material for the battery pack. compared to steel. And very rare in some of the manufacturers like Chevrolet Bolt, Mecca, and Kia, and companies like BYD, Hyundai Ioniq, they are using steel as the enclosure material for the battery pack. Other than that, most of the battery packs like Tesla, Volkswagen, and even some of the models of Hyundai Kona, they are all using aluminum as the enclosure material. And even some companies, they are using CFRP, that means the carbon fiber reinforced plastic, also for a lightweight, very very lightweight design. And people know that it is like 300 times it is costlier. The cost of lithium CF carbon fiber is like almost 300 times costlier than conventional steel present in the market. So definitely it is not very feasible at this point of time today, but definitely in future we will see more carbon fiber and aluminum mixed usage. Some of the companies, they use mixed material. Mixed materials in the sense, what they do is they use steel for the crash structure, aluminum for the tray, right? Or steel for the frame, aluminum for the tray. So likewise, they use different materials, mix of materials, not only aluminum for all the components, right? So depending upon their design requirements, they do consider that. So material selection for enclosure design. So what else we need to consider when you have a requirement for enclosure design? What else we need to consider is the temperature performance. Can you people imagine when a electric vehicle catching fire? Now I am giving an example to you participants. I am having in left side, I am having a electric car which is having a battery pack made up of aluminum. On the right side, I am having a battery pack which is made up of steel with a car. Okay. And now can you people tell me which do you think, which system, which battery pack do you think is more safer in terms of fire propagation, flame propagation? Which battery pack do you think will be able to sustain flames more? Or which battery pack will provide a very safe environment for the passengers comparatively? Any answers?
Steel.
Steel, yes. Very good, ma'am. Thank you for your answer. So we see that steel, aluminum, both are strong competitors today in the market. We are seeing aluminum is widely used as a lightweight material. So, but compared to steel, we know that the temperature, right, the thermal performance. If you look at the temperature withstanding capability, definitely steel is going to be a winner there. But on the lightweight front, on the lightweight design front, today most of the manufacturers, they prefer aluminum. And if they prefer aluminum, it doesn't mean that they are actually compromising on the safety. It doesn't mean like that. They ensure that they provide a proper sealant, proper sealing, proper tight, complete sealant, complete IP rating for the battery pack, complete waterproof, dust proof, so that either it is aluminum or steel, it is going to be safer. Right. So aluminum is widely preferred because of its lightweighting nature. And even in steel, it is not just steel, it is ultra high strength steel, UHSS, which is preferred as the major important material for the battery pack application. And today, not only the steel and aluminum, there are other competitors also present in the market. Right. So if you look at the aluminum alloys, basically aluminum, silicon, magnesium, copper. That is the widely used. Even some amount of manganese is also added with respect to the different characteristic requirements of the battery pack. So we can see that overall, these are all the different alloys. So you can see the 5000 series alloys, specifically these alloys, and 7000 series, specifically 7075T6. These are all the different aluminum alloys which is suitably selected for the electric vehicle battery pack application, right? So in addition to the aluminum and steel, we also have the thermoplastic elastomers playing a very, very important role in the recent year. The last 2020, 2021, we are right now in 2021. Last 2020 was a very good transition here. You can see on the electric vehicle domain. In my, as per my views, there has been a lot of improvement happened on the polymer side. So now the polymers with the lightweighting, fire resistance, mechanical performance, their ability to withstand harsh environment, broad temperature withstanding capability, all these things had led to polymers becoming a very important component, a very important material for the battery pack application. So today there are different material processes like sheet molding compound or resin transfer molding compound, different processes used in the battery pack design for using the polymers in the system. So basically, these polymers, they provide a very low density versus aluminum, and at the same time, that is one of the say that there are both drawbacks and positive and negatives are there. These are highly corrosion resistant compared to the other metal based metal based systems, and they also provide very good design flexibility. Do you people remember this battery pack? Remember this Chevrolet Volt battery pack that is actually made from polymer, the polymer casing like this, right? So they have used, why they have used, because it is providing a better design flexibility for the design engineer who is involved in a project. And not only on a pack enclosure, even the cell level, module level enclosures, they can also be using polymers. So today all the one of the major polymer which is applied here is the polyvinylidene fluoride, which is one of the major polymer used in the cathode binder. And cell level, if you see the gasket, the outer gasket, they are made from tetrafluoroethylene, perfluoromethylvinyl ether, and polyphenylene sulfide. These are all the different polymers which are having excellent chemical resistance, excellent temperature, high temperature withstanding capability. Right, so those are all the advantages. In addition, the polymers which can also be applied on the module, pack, and the cooling level. On the cooling side, different polymers are there like semi-aromatic polyamides and polyphthalamide, and different amide based polymers are applied in this particular battery pack design. Today, nowadays, they are applying it. And a very important innovation happened very recently is the dielectric fluid. Right, nowadays, instead of having a separate cooling loop, cooling plate, and for the battery pack, the whole battery pack can be immersed inside the cooling liquid. That is nothing but the dielectric liquid. One of the best example for the dielectric liquid is nothing but the perfluoropolyether. Perfluoropolyether, which is the first dielectric fluid which is applied for a battery pack. It is having almost all characteristics required for a cooling system. It is cooling loop, cooling liquid. One is the non-flammability. It is having excellent dielectric properties, excellent chemical stability, excellent heat transfer, and very good viscosity at different temperatures. That is also one issue, right? The viscosity of the liquid for wide temperature range, that is also very important. So this new immersion cooling technology for the battery pack, it's definitely considered as a breakthrough in the battery pack design. So nowadays, in coming years, you will see that this type of immersion cooling technology will be implemented in the electric vehicle battery pack, right? In addition to this, the overall structural stiffness is also very important. There are some bonding materials are used between the battery module and the battery pack to provide a very stiff structure. So any sort of vibration, crash, these battery packs will remain in their position at all the time, right? And moreover, IP rating is also very important as per the safety consideration. As per the electric vehicle battery design, IP ratings are very important. And today in India, we are having battery packs starting from IP65 to IP67, right? So what is meant by IP rating? It is the ingress protection. It is nothing but, so if I say IP67, it means 6 means dust proof, no ingress of dust, no contact, completely dust proof. So the battery pack will be designed completely dust proof. 67, IP67 means 7 means it is protection from immersion up to 1 meter of water. So the battery pack can withstand up to 1 meter of water, above which it might allow the water to enter, right? So that is a limitation. And if you consider companies like Audi, BMW, Mercedes, all these companies are developing battery pack at extreme IP ratings. For example, the IP ratings are IP6K, 9K. Many times people might not have heard this IP6K, 9K. That is one of the highest IP rating which is available in the market today, which is dust proof and waterproof up to a very high temperature water jet. It is not just water, up to very high temperature level of water is also possible. You can spray that on the battery pack. The water will never enter into the battery pack. So that is an extreme waterproof, dust proof available in the market today. right? So that is one thing. So overall, the enclosure ratings are also available in the NEMA rating. We call it as NEMA rating. And even in India, there is a rating, separate rating for that. I'll talk about that. Recyclability factor, I will explain that in the later part. Before that, we will talk about this very important consideration. When you look at, when you look at this battery pack, today many times people, general public, even not only general people, general public, even very well educated people, still they are having a rising question whether the battery packs are safer or not, right? So to safeguard the batteries only, they do all these tests. Can you look at the tests? These are all the tests conducted by testing agencies across the globe to check the battery pack performance. There are they are categorized into mechanical abuse test, thermal abuse test, and electrical abuse test. So they take the battery pack to all these different level of tests. And the standard which is applicable for the battery pack testing is nothing but IEC, International Electrotechnical Commission Standard 62133, and the ASTM 1529. These are all the different standards applicable for electric vehicle battery pack testing. And when you look at India's electric vehicle battery testing is not very good in my opinion, because in India we are only conducting these five tests only: short circuit test, overcharge test, shock test, vibration, and nail penetration. Only these five tests are conducted in India for electric vehicle, but in US, Europe, they are conducting all these, nearly almost 20 plus tests are they're conducting. So, but in India, very recently, 2020 March, February end, they started applying the new testing standards as well. But it is not completely implemented. It is going to become mandatory only after 2023. So till that, the electric vehicles which are coming in the market in India till 2023, they have only conducted these tests in the market, right? So that is the drawback. So if you look at this example, this is an example of Nissan Leaf battery pack. And this Nissan Leaf, you can see the different modules placed there. Totally, let us look at the specification of this pack. So this Nissan Leaf battery pack has for every module, they have totally 2 cells in series, 2 cells in parallel. And each cell is having a nominal voltage of 3.7 voltage. So if they connect 2 cells in parallel, they will get 7.6 voltage. This is an example of Nissan Leaf electric vehicle, right? And the operating temperature they have provided is minus 25 degrees Celsius to 60 degrees Celsius. And the capacity of single, the overall module is actually 66 Ah. That means there are 2 cells in parallel. That means what? One cell is having 33 Ah as capacity. So one cell is having 33 Ah as capacity. So in every module, they have 2 cells in series and parallel. So 7.6 voltage and 66.2 Ah. So when you multiply 7.6 into 66, so what we get? 7.6 into 66. So we get overall for 501, overall the output power of this pack module, every module, and it is weighing 3.8 kilogram. Every module weighs 3.8 kilogram. And when you look at so every cell makes a module, every module has 4 cells, and every pack of a Nissan Leaf has 48 modules. So totally how many cells are there? Totally how many cells are there? On the whole battery pack? 48 modules into 4, it is 192 cells are used in this particular system. And these are all the pack level specification of Nissan Leaf. You can very clearly see it is having a 48 module pack, and every module, you saw that 360 volt is the overall voltage. So they have clearly mentioned every cell has 7.6 volt, every module. So totally 48 modules into 7.6, we get 364.8 as the voltage of the battery pack. Is it clear for everyone? And the overall ampere hour capacity. So they mentioned very clearly 24 ampere hour is the energy availability. So 24,000 watt divided by 360 voltage. So if it is very clearly seeing, you can see that it is what you are getting is 66 ampere. Can you participants repeat the calculation? Can you participants repeat the calculation? We are having a voltage of 360 volt, and there are 48 modules, and total energy is 24 kilowatt hour. So 24 kilowatt hour means 24,000 watt hour. So 24,000 divided by 360 volt, what I am getting is the ampere hour. It is 66 ampere hour. Is it right? All the participants getting the same answer? So this is how the Nissan Leaf has developed their module, and they have done many changes. They have applied this particular module. If you see, look at this module. This module, upper cover and the lower cover, they have optimized the, basically what is the scope of optimization, scope of improvement on a battery pack for a research scholar is basically optimizing the materials using there inside this battery module, optimizing the type of connection. In this case, they have used the lock seam structure versus press fit structure, right? So they have applied a lock seam structure previously, and now they are using the press fit structure. So this has enhanced, the improved the number of parts. It has reduced the number of parts usage, and overall weight of the module has been improved. And it also reduced the thermal shock damage to the battery cell compared to the conventional welding process that they had previously, right? Even they optimize the size of the battery disconnect unit, optimize the size of the battery service disconnect switch. Every generation Nissan Leaf is improving the design perspective. So these are all the role of design engineers. So as a research scholar, end of the day, as a research scholar, the scope of research for a mechanical engineer is to work on the material, on the packaging side. He can improve the battery pack design via using better material, better manufacturing process, better assembly process. All these are the areas of scope of work for the mechanical, manufacturing, and production engineering professionals, basically. So Nissan has every year Nissan has improved the battery pack, and you can very clearly see that from 2010 they had a 2024 kilowatt hour battery pack, whereas 2019 for the same space, with the same space of the battery pack, they were able to achieve 62 kilowatt hour of battery pack space. And you can look at the range they have achieved. They have achieved a range of 458 kilometer at the driving cycle of WLTC. So approximately they will have at least 400 kilometer on the real-time situation. So every generation, Nissan has improved their battery pack from 2011, 12, 15, 17, and now in 19, and now in 2022, they are going to launch a new Nissan Leaf that is going to have a more bigger battery pack, that means more capacity battery pack, but of the same size. So end of the day, they are able to achieve the improvement on the battery pack, maintaining the same size. That is the challenge today. So the main scope of work for a mechanical engineer or the engineers working in the battery pack domain is basically to bring down the size of each and every component. We call it as downsizing. So downsizing of each and every component by optimizing each and every component, either it is a cell or a module or a pack, right? So that's the scope of work there for the engineers. Basically, these are all the different optimization that can be implemented. So that's all about the thing. But let me show one video. So to make sure that batteries are properly tested, this is an example of nail penetration of a battery pack. Let us look at this example. So this is a battery pack. You can see battery module. You can very clearly see this is also battery module. This is also battery module. They are now directly applying the nail penetration test. Let us look at it, how it is behaving in this situation. Actually, a good cell, a good quality cell should not have a temperature rise more than certain limit. So a good cell which is there on the left side here, it is behaving differently, and a bad cell which is there in this place, which is behaving differently. Let us look at it. Look at the temperature rise. The bad cell, it has already crossed 313 degrees Celsius, and a good cell, it is still in the 18 degrees Celsius only. we can very clearly see that the venting starts happening, right? So this is the venting which will start happening in a good cell. So immediately after the pressure rises inside the cell, automatically the vent hole will open and it will vent all the pressure outside it, and basically these vent gases will be contained within the battery pack. So the battery pack should be designed in such a way that all these gases are properly vented. It should not blast, it should not explode in a case of this situation. Today these tests are actually conducted for the battery pack present in the even in the Indian market as well. So the max temperature it is going is 90 degrees Celsius inside the battery pack, not more than that. So you can see 120, 127, 180, the max temperature went to 142, right? And in this case, the temperatures were more than 550 degrees Celsius on a poor quality cell. So that's the case of a battery pack, battery pack. So basically, when a design engineer works with a battery pack, right, he need to make sure that all sort of considerations are being taken into consideration, especially the thermal management perspective. So they need to consider, they can optimize the material selection analysis on this, right? There is a huge scope for analysis and improving the thermal management. So as a research scholar, basically you can conduct the thermal management studies, structural analysis studies on for a typical battery pack. Especially, I would suggest the faculties to concentrate on two-wheeler, three-wheeler industry, right? Today, because if you do anything, any research related to two-wheeler and three-wheeler, you get it immediately applied in the market. Most immediately you will get that particular patent or any sort of improvement you have done. You can immediately approach the manufacturer. Even we can help you to reach the manufacturer to showcase your improvement or optimization, and that will be immediately applied in the market because there is a huge amount of demand in the two and three wheeler segment. And the passenger car segment, yes, there are more challenges, and as a faculty level, it is quite difficult for you people to work in a bigger pack level, so that in terms of testing validation it will be very costly for you people to conduct the tests, right? So I would strongly recommend to work in a small pack level, smaller capacity level, so that you'll be able to get better results, and not just work in a research paper level. I would strongly recommend all the faculty members to work closely with the companies, check their problem, ask what they need and solve their problem, and get paid for it even, right? They are ready to pay for such kind of paid projects, paid research projects. So if any such kind of situations, requirements are there, definitely we can support on that aspect as well. So till now, is there any questions on the battery pack side? I don't know how many people are directly working on the battery pack related project, but yes, definitely, if in future, if you are going to work, or if any of your friends are going to work, definitely let them know that these are all the considerations there, right? So it's a very short session, so but there are many other things to consider in the battery pack side. So maybe in future, if we have more detailed session, definitely we'll talk about it. So any questions, queries? Regarding the battery BMS, we'll be talking about that tomorrow. So I don't expect the questions from BMS right now because we have not discussed about it now. But maybe on the pack level, if there are any question, kindly please.
Any more questions?
Okay, tell me, sir. No problem. What is your question, sir, from BMS? Okay. About cell voltage balancing. Okay. Any specific questions, sir? You can put it in the chat box. because tomorrow we'll be like detailedly we'll be discussing about BMS, the various cell balancing methodologies implemented by the companies. But still, no problem. You can mention the question here. Obviously, sir. Obviously, cell voltage balancing techniques are used, and obviously, it is a very fundamental, important factor, important functionality of the BMS. So, and it is applicable for all two-wheeler, three-wheeler, all electric vehicle applications. Definitely, especially in a lithium battery environment, definitely cell voltage balancing technique is used. But the type of cell balancing technique, either it is a resistor type or capacitance type, or it is a DC-DC capacitor, DC-DC converter type, depending upon the active balancing, passive balancing, that depends upon the type of application. I think you will get a very detailed answer by tomorrow, sir. Active, passive, yes, both are applied for two-wheeler as well as passenger car application, but that depends upon multiple factors that we'll be discussing tomorrow. Yes, sir, yes. Thank you. Any other questions?
Okay, sir. Shall we wind up?
Yes, ma'am. So if any questions that comes after either by tomorrow's session also, feel free to reach us. Right? Don't hesitate to ask questions. I'm a very young guy. I'm not as experienced as you people, but feel free to ask me as much as questions possible so that I will also learn from this kind of experience. So thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for all your. Thank you.